The dazzling promise of Las Vegas, a city of endless crowds, packed casinos, and sleepless nights, has become a cruel joke. Today, a chilling silence hangs in the air. The iconic Strip is a desolate wasteland, a shadow of its former self. And a terrifying question is being whispered for the first time in decades. Why has the city of sin been turned into a ghost town? But beneath the flickering neon and the shadows of those billion-dollar monoliths, a horrifying truth is clawing its way into the light. And this isn't some back alley rumor. This isn't wild speculation. It came directly from the mouth of a former Las Vegas mayor, an insider who knows every dirty secret this city holds. In an absolutely stunning confession, this ex-official declared that what we're witnessing is anything but bad luck. And it has nothing to do with the economy. According to their own words, the hollowed-out shell of Las Vegas in 2025 is no accident. It is a calculated, deliberate act, a meticulously crafted plan, born from backroom deals in corporate boardrooms and shadowy political offices years before a single tourist even sensed something was wrong. This bombshell revelation completely shatters the illusion of Vegas. Was this engineered emptiness a brutal, intentional reset of the entire casino industry? Were secret pacts forged to line the pockets of a select few powerful puppet masters? And if a former mayor is finally breaking their silence, just how deep and how dark does this conspiracy truly run? Tonight, we rip the gilded facade off this city to expose why Las Vegas was emptied by design, and we reveal the scandalous truth its leaders have desperately tried to bury. For decades, Las Vegas was the undisputed, glittering crown jewel of American entertainment. A city that defied the very concept of sleep because the world clamored at its gates. In the 1970s and 1980s, Vegas was a whirlwind of legendary stars commanding the stage nightly, where every gaming table was swarmed with gamblers, and tourists fought for tickets to shows sold out for weeks. By the 1990s, the Strip had exploded into a blinding corridor of mega resorts, each one a monument to excess, desperately trying to outshine the last. From the iconic Bellagio fountains to the bizarre pyramid of Luxor, these landmarks weren't just hotels. They were brazen temples of wealth, raw ambition, and a dangerously seductive version of the American dream. At its absolute zenith, Vegas was a magnet, pulling in over 40 million souls a year. The casinos were printing money, raking in billions that fueled an entire economy built on perpetual motion. Taxi drivers, cocktail servers, hotel clerks, dealers, entertainers, every single soul was a cog in the great Vegas machine, and they were proud of it. There was a fierce pride in knowing their city was a global legend. When the world craved escape, indulgence, or a taste of danger, their minds went straight to Las Vegas. But the city's meteoric rise was never just about the show. Behind that blinding wall of light, the city became a nexus for brutal boxing showdowns, blockbuster concerts, and clandestine political summits. Deals were cut in smoke-filled casino backrooms that sent shockwaves through industries far beyond Nevada's borders. Billionaires erected entire empires on the back of the Strip. Celebrities became living legends with residencies that paid out tens of millions of dollars. The city was drunk on its own power, utterly unstoppable, arrogantly insulated from the decay that crippled other American cities. The numbers screamed success. In 2019, in the final moments before the world was turned upside down, Vegas devoured over $36 billion in gaming and tourism revenue. Its airports were deluged by a constant flood of international travelers. Every hotel was crammed to the breaking point with business conventions. Even when the rest of America buckled under recessions, Las Vegas always clawed its way back, a phoenix fueled by a toxic cocktail of risk, luxury, and pure illusion. And that is precisely why the apocalyptic sight of skeletal sidewalks and tomb-like gaming floors in 2025 is so profoundly disturbing. To grasp the sheer horror of this, you must remember the myth that Vegas once was. It was the pressure release valve for millions of desperate people. a sanctuary where rules were merely suggestions and time itself ceased to exist. People would scrimp and save for years just for one single week in its grasp, knowing there was no other place like it on Earth. But make no mistake, that explosive growth was meticulously engineered. A cabal of local leaders, casino titans, and ruthless developers poured billions into a high-stakes game to ensure Vegas crushed all competition. Each decade had to be bigger, more audacious. Consider the Mirage in 1989, unleashing the themed mega-resort beast, or the Venetian in 1999, a grotesque fantasy that dared to replicate the canals of Venice in the middle of a desert. These weren't just buildings. They were arrogant declarations of power. The gospel was clear. Vegas would always reinvent, and Vegas would always win. But as the towers clawed at the sky, a crushing pressure was building in the foundations. The war for tourists became a blood sport. The smaller, independent casinos were devoured whole by corporate behemoths. The very workers who built the city felt the vice grip of rising costs tighten around them. And while the headlines screamed of success, the gilded facade was beginning to crack. When the pandemic finally struck in 2020, the myth of invincibility was utterly shattered. And yet, almost no one believed Vegas could ever truly die. Even in its bleakest hours, the Strip always rose from the ashes. And that is what makes today's cold, silent reality not just disturbing, it's terrifying. But to witness the very heart of Las Vegas now beating with a terrifyingly weak pulse forces us to ask the questions no one wants to answer. If this monument to unstoppable ambition can be brought to its knees, standing half empty and silent, then what colossal force could be powerful enough to orchestrate such a downfall? The terrifying answer we're about to uncover has nothing to do with luck. It's about absolute control. And in a stunning admission, a former mayor confessed the truth. This hollowed-out shell we see today was no accident. It was engineered, written into the city's destiny long before the first light ever flickered out. Step onto the Las Vegas Strip in 2025 and the change hits you like a physical blow. It's a truth so stark, it's impossible to deny. The sidewalks, once a river of humanity from every corner of the globe, are now unnervingly barren. On a Saturday night when the Bellagio should be thrumming with life and Caesar's Palace packed to the rafters, you can hear the haunting echo of your own footsteps on the pavement. The neon still bleeds into the night. The slots still spin their hypnotic lies. But the crowds, the very lifeblood of this city, have vanished. And the workers, the veterans who've seen every boom and bust, they all whisper the same chilling words. They have never, ever seen anything like this. One taxi driver, a man who's navigated this strip since the 1990s, lays it bare. Even after the 2008 financial meltdown, they came. Even after 2020, when the whole world went dark, the strip roared back to life. But this is different. This feels deliberate. This feels engineered. His words are a chilling echo of the fear you hear from waitresses, from bellhops, and from the dealers behind the tables. They all tell the same grim story. Endless hours of silence, shifts slashed without warning, and paychecks that are a shadow of what they once were. And the cold, hard data proves they're not imagining it. Hotel occupancy has plummeted. Entire floors of these glittering towers sit dark and unbooked, like ghost ships in the desert. Analysts are sounding the alarm. Resorts that once boasted a staggering 90% capacity are now fighting to even hit 50% on a weekend. Restaurants that once demanded reservations weeks in advance now greet walk-ins with desperate smiles. And the city's convention calendar, once the crown jewel of the city's economy, now shows gaping empty weeks with no one coming. So why? Why is everyone staying away? The easy answer they want you to believe is the crushing cost. A single night in a so-called mid-level hotel will bleed you for over $300, and that's before they slap you with outrageous resort fees. Parking, once a given, is now a ransom of over $25 a day, and the classic buffet? That cherished Vegas tradition will now set you back a sickening $60 to $80 a head. For the average family, the dream of an affordable escape has been systematically dismantled. Then there's the other excuse, a rising tide of menace. The headlines scream with stories of brazen robberies, sophisticated scams, and tourists becoming victims. People arrive dreaming of luxury and leave with nightmares of being gouged for every penny or feeling a constant threat after sunset. And of course, they point to the global stage. International travel, especially from powerhouses like China, has slowed to a crawl, ripping a gaping hole in the city's revenue stream. We're talking about Chinese high rollers who once poured billions into the casinos and luxury stores, and their absence is a palpable void, felt from the high-end boutiques at the Venetian to the silent baccarat tables at the Wynn. But even with all these excuses, the emptiness feels too precise, too deliberate. It's too coordinated to be a simple product of high prices or travel trends. Inside sources, the employees themselves, speak of bizarre, unspoken directives from the top. Entire sections of casinos intentionally roped off. Hit shows mysteriously paused even when there are people desperate to get in. It's insane. It's like they want it to look dead, one bartender confided, his voice laced with disbelief. None of us understand it. They just feed us lines about it being temporary, all part of some great reset. But the public is only being shown the carefully curated surface. Fewer people, shorter lines, and casinos that look like they're on the verge of collapse. But those on the inside know this is a performance. This illusion of failure masks a far more sinister strategy, because in this town, nothing, absolutely nothing, is ever left to chance. Not even the manufactured emptiness of a casino floor. And when you follow the money, the deception becomes undeniable. While the revenue from tourism has nosedived, the profits for the megacorporations that own this town are somehow steady, even climbing. Now, how in the world is that possible? The answer, it seems, is buried in a web of clandestine global deals. The losses here on the Strip are just a write-off, easily covered by massive operations in Macau, Singapore, and a booming online empire. For the architects of this new reality, Vegas is no longer about filling every room. It's about manufacturing an illusion of scarcity, all while they secretly pivot to the next golden goose. And this is precisely why those whispers of a planned, engineered emptiness will not be silenced. The people who live here feel it in their bones. This city's silence is not natural. It's a lie. The pieces of the puzzle simply don't fit. The Strip is designed to look like it's bleeding out. Yet the corporate titans behind the curtain are acting like they've just hit the jackpot. And you, the tourist, are fed the convenient lie that it's all just because of inflation. But whispers from the inside paint a far more sinister reality. The architects of this city are engineering a playground exclusively for the rich, callously discarding the millions of ordinary people. The fallout for the local residents has been an absolute catastrophe. Bartenders, croupiers, and cab drivers, the very souls who built this city with their bare hands, are being callously cast aside as Vegas is ruthlessly re-engineered behind their backs. And as they fight for their very survival, a terrifying question echoes through the silence. Is the hollowing out of Las Vegas all part of some sinister, secret plan? That question festered in the poisoned air until a former mayor stepped from the shadows with a horrifying answer. And once they spoke, the appalling truth became undeniable. The silence on the Strip was no accident. It was a cold, calculated demolition. The whispers of conspiracy had swirled for months, but the game changed forever when a former Las Vegas mayor finally decided to shatter the silence. In a bombshell interview in 2025, they confessed something that sent a shockwave of betrayal through locals and tourists alike. The emptiness of Las Vegas was not some tragic accident. It was a deliberate design. The former mayor, who once presided over the city's golden age, revealed secretive closed-door meetings that began as far back as the early 2000s and 10s. According to their chilling account, a cabal of city leaders, untouchable casino titans, and predatory Wall Street investors had gathered to conspire, plotting what they called the future of Las Vegas. Back then, the Strip was pulsating with life, but these insiders feared the old model, millions of ordinary people spending modest amounts, was no longer profitable enough for their insatiable greed. They craved fewer people spending obscene amounts of money. The mayor's admission was a stake through the heart. What you see today isn't a collapse, they warned. It's a controlled burn. They wanted to purge the old, eradicate the chaotic, and expel the affordable, replacing it all with something far more lucrative for them. And they knew this scorched earth policy would make the city look like a ghost town. This sickening revelation suddenly connected all the dots that tormented locals had been desperately trying to explain. Why were entire hotel towers left vacant when demand was screaming? Why were shows and restaurants abruptly canceled despite selling out? And how did the city's biggest resorts keep reporting record profits, while smaller, beloved casinos were quietly suffocated? According to the former mayor, this was the diabolical strategy. By manufacturing a false scarcity, the corporate overlords could remold the city's very identity and prepare it for a new, ultra-wealthy clientele. The words of the former mayor also ripped back the curtain, exposing the rotten core of the city's politics. They detailed the unrelenting pressure from both state officials and deep-pocketed national lobbyists shackled to the casino industry. Every single decision, whether to greenlight a new mega resort or to allow foreign capital to swallow up properties or to jack up fees on parking and resort stays, was never made for the good of the public. It was made to serve the voracious interests of that tiny, powerful few at the very top. Las Vegas, they confessed, was never about tourism. It was about absolute control. And control meant deciding precisely who the city was for and who would be left to rot. For the city's residents, the confession was a profound betrayal. The former mayor admitted that local families, loyal workers, and even small business owners were all considered collateral damage. Skyrocketing rents, disappearing tips, and slashed work hours weren't just unfortunate side effects. They were the intended, brutal consequences of the reset. The manufactured emptiness created the perfect excuse to force out the old guard and replace them with global corporations, circling like vultures to buy up land and property at fire sale prices. This explosive testimony also laid bare the unholy alliance between Las Vegas and the wider financial world. The mayor claimed that major Wall Street firms and overseas investors, particularly those with shadowy ties to gambling empires like Macau, were intimately involved in discussions on how to transform the Strip into an exclusive playground for the rich. The truth, they said, is that Las Vegas has always been a mirror of global power. If the Strip is empty, it's because someone powerful and unseen wanted it that way. As their word spread like wildfire, residents recalled the string of bizarre policies that now made a horrifying kind of sense. Why had the city sanctioned the demolition of perfectly good mid-tier resorts instead of fighting to preserve them? Why were iconic buffets, a staple of Vegas life, shuttered permanently, even after demand came roaring back? Why were new, monstrous mega projects announced, while historic properties sat half dead? The former mayor's admission tied it all together in a neat, terrifying bow. The emptiness wasn't a sign of failure. It was a calculated preparation. The reaction was a firestorm. Some hailed the former mayor as a brave whistleblower, while others condemned them for trying to escape their own culpability. But one fact was inescapable. Their words perfectly matched the grim reality people were living on the ground. Tourists cried out about being priced out of a city they once loved. Workers fought harder than ever for scraps. And yet, the billion-dollar corporations orchestrating this nightmare from their glass towers seemed utterly immune, thriving in the devastation they had wrought. In the days following the confession, the media replayed the mayor's haunting words endlessly. This isn't Vegas falling apart. This is Vegas being rebuilt, and not for everyone. For millions, it was the final, heartbreaking confirmation of their worst fears. The magic of Las Vegas had been deliberately and systematically gutted. This manufactured emptiness wasn't just a downturn, it was a weapon, a tool to forge a future exclusively for the ultra-rich. But this horrifying revelation only opened the door to an even more disturbing question. If this desolation was a deliberate act, then who were the puppet masters pulling the strings, profiting from the silence? And what terrifying lengths would they go to bury this conspiracy once the mayor's confession ignited a firestorm? The question that screams for an answer is brutally simple. Who gets rich from a ghost town Las Vegas? Because in this city of smoke and mirrors, nothing, and I mean nothing, happens by accident. Someone is always cashing in, and when you dare to look behind the curtain, the vultures profiting from this silence start to crawl out of the woodwork. First on the list are the corporate titans, the mega casino conglomerates. Giants like MGM Resorts and Caesars Entertainment have faced storms before, but this time, their calm is utterly chilling. While hotel rooms sit empty and the city bleeds, their profits mysteriously soar. How is this possible? Because these behemoths have built a global empire. They've abandoned the Strip as their lifeblood. They've sunk their claws into Macau, Singapore, Dubai, and the vast unregulated world of online gambling that ensnares millions across the globe. The Strip, once the heart of their empire, is now just a prop. A billboard screaming luxury, exclusivity, and absolute control. A deserted Strip isn't a problem for them. It's a strategic move to reset the entire game in their favor. Next, you have the sharks from Wall Street, circling and swooping in under the cover of chaos. Properties that were once worth billions are now being liquidated at bargain basement prices. Hedge funds and private equity vultures see this manufactured silence as a golden opportunity to snatch up prime real estate for pennies on the dollar. An insider chillingly called it a controlled demolition of the market. For these predators, every empty casino floor, every half-booked hotel is a weapon used to bleed the smaller players dry, forcing them out so they can consolidate power into the hands of a select, ruthless few. And then there are the foreign investors, waiting in the wings to profit as Vegas shamelessly rebrands itself as an exclusive playground for the world's billionaire elite. We're seeing a flood of cash from Asia and the Middle East, buying up the soul of this city, one luxury property at a time. The deliberate purge of the everyday tourist is their marketing strategy, making it easy to sell Vegas as a gated fortress for the global elite. Where families once stood in line for buffets, they're now building private, high-roller sanctuaries. These temples of excess are built for clients who think nothing of betting millions in a single night. But make no mistake, while the rich get richer, the casualties of this war are all around us. The casino workers, the backbone of this city, who depended on packed floors and generous tips, are watching their livelihoods evaporate. Taxi and rideshare drivers sit idle for hours. The street performers, the small vendors, the very people who gave the Strip its vibrant, chaotic soul are being systematically erased. And the devastation spreads. With local businesses far from the Strip, the diners and shops that survived on tourist overflow now staring down the barrel of extinction. The former mayor's confession lays the truth bare. None of this was an accident. This devastation was the intended, calculated outcome of their plan. They wanted to thin the herd, the mayor admitted with chilling honesty. And he wasn't just talking about tourists. He meant the businesses too. If you couldn't weather this manufactured storm, then you were deemed unworthy of the new Las Vegas. It's a brutal Darwinian logic that explains why so many iconic smaller casinos are simply vanishing into thin air. Landmarks like the Tropicana, soaked in decades of history, are now nothing but rubble and memories, shuttered and demolished. Their land is greedily snapped up by developers peddling hollow promises of billion-dollar mega projects. To the corporate overlords and their investors, these closures are just another win on the balance sheet. But to the people who live here, it's the systematic erasure of their city's history. And the infection spreads beyond the Strip. Another cabal of beneficiaries emerges: the real estate developers. With tourism crippled and property values in chaos, these developers are feasting on parcels of land at rock-bottom prices. And already, the blueprints are drawn for gleaming new luxury condos, exclusive private resorts, and entertainment fortresses. All designed not for you, but for a tiny fraction of the global elite. This engineered emptiness provides the perfect smokescreen, allowing them to build their new kingdom without answering to the millions who once made this city thrive. All the while, the political class gets the one thing it craves most: absolute control. Think about it. The fewer people on the Strip, the easier it is to regulate, to monitor, to completely restructure society. By choking the life out of Vegas, the officials can hide behind the pathetic excuse of addressing overcrowding or safety concerns, when the horrifying reality is they're just handing the keys to the city over to a handful of corporations and shadowy investors. And here lies the sick, twisted irony. For decades, the myth of Las Vegas was its inclusivity. The promise that anyone could show up, anyone could play, and anyone could strike it rich. But this new Vegas they are engineering is a grotesque betrayal of that promise. It's a city of high walls, velvet ropes, and secret rooms, meticulously designed to lock the vast majority of people out. And that is precisely why this emptiness is so terrifying. This isn't a failure of the system, it's a deliberate, brutal filter. And as the residents of this city are left to struggle and the small players are crushed into oblivion, the true architects of this ruin remain untouchable, hidden away in their boardrooms and their offshore accounts. They are feasting on the corpse of a city as its streets descend into an unnatural hush, and heed the chilling prophecy of the former mayor. This monstrous transformation has only just begun. This hollow void is merely the first act in a far grander, more sinister scheme. One engineered to corrupt the very soul of Las Vegas and broadcast a terrifying new message to the world. And so the Strip now stands hauntingly still. Its iconic neon glow a flickering ghost telling a tale no one dared to imagine. The lifeblood of the city, the crowds, has vanished, leaving behind skeletal, half-empty sidewalks. The once deafening symphony of clinking chips has faded to a timid, hesitant whisper. But now, thanks to a bombshell from a former mayor, the horrifying truth is exposed. This desolation is no accident. This is not some unfortunate consequence of inflation, crime, or fickle tourist trends. This is a cold, calculated purge. It is meticulously engineered. And this appalling revelation unleashes a torrent of terrifying questions. If the silencing of Vegas in 2025 is truly a covert reset, then what unspeakable horror is next on their agenda? Which other powerful figures lurking in the shadows were complicit in this betrayal? How many other catastrophic decisions are being sealed in smoke-filled rooms far from the public eye? Make no mistake, this monstrous metamorphosis was never just about casinos or tourism. It's about a raw, audacious power grab. By manufacturing this hollow void, they are terraforming the city for an exclusive new clientele, a playground for a global elite that despises the common man. The ordinary families, the hopeful tourists on a budget, the very workers whose sweat and toil built this legend. They are all being systematically purged, cast aside like yesterday's trash. All while the billionaires, the faceless corporations, and the predatory global investors swoop in to claim the spoils. For decades, the sacred promise of Vegas was that anyone had a shot, that anyone could win. But now that promise has been exposed as a grotesque lie. The house is no longer just playing the odds. It's rigging the entire game, handpicking who is even worthy to sit at the table. And if the former mayor's confession holds true, then the soul of the Vegas we knew is gone forever, deliberately extinguished. The final desperate question remains. Will the world simply bow down to this sanitized corporate Las Vegas, or will the deafening silence of the Strip finally ignite the furious backlash this city so desperately needs? If you dare to uncover the other rotting truths hidden within America's most iconic cities, then you must subscribe and voice your outrage in the comments below. The horrifying truth about Las Vegas is only the tip of the iceberg.